I start with a flattened piece of coil spring for the blade, evening up the dimensions to get it ready for beveling. I forge with water on the anvil because it creates a small steam explosion between the hot steel and the anvil, forcing the forge scale off of the surfaces. As I bevel, I have to counteract the bend created by the beveling process. It's best to bend it before beveling because you won't be deforming a thin edge. I bring the end of the stock to the near side of the anvil where I can isolate the tang. I have found that this is much easier to do before you bevel. The bottom of the tang has to line up with the top of the spine, so I bend the tang up in a vise. Then I hammer it back down so everything lines up right. I flatten the very end of the tang so there won't be an uncomfortable bump on the back of the handle when it's folded open. To create the sheep's foot shaped blade, I use a hot cut at an angle to the parent bar so it creates a nice tip shape. I then dress the tip of the knife, lightly beveling. For the handle, I cut off a wide piece of aluminum. The aluminum is tough and prone to work hardening in its current state, so I need to heat up the aluminum to normalize it and make it softer. I use glycerin soap as an indicator because the temperature at which it turns black is about the temperature when the aluminum has undergone a phase change, resetting the crystal structure, so to speak. The handle is then ready to hammer out with the cross peen, giving it a nice texture and widening the material. All of the texture work hardens the aluminum, so I have to normalize it again before I do more shaping. Next, I profile and rough grind the blade to get it ready for heat treat. My pivot drill had to be sharpened by hand, so it takes off very small chips. The edge on it's probably too obtuse. Then I heat treat the blade, quenching in canola oil and peanut oil mix. The handle shaping starts in a vise where I create the initial bend in the center. Then I close it up further on the anvil and transfer it to a flat mandrel to better shape the handle. I cut off one side of the handle, leaving a square edge. fillet drill, then a small amount of the top of the handle is cut out so the blade can fully rotate around. I then file the cutout area to allow a better fit. For the washers, I drill holes in a piece of brass and then cut it with some tin snips to clip the corners. This way they won't be sticking out from between the knife and the handle. On the mandrel, I stamp my touch mark. It's the letters R and F that form a triangle shape for Rougemont Forge. For pivots, I use soft iron nails. A ball peen is used to flare out either end of the rivet, which holds everything in place. I found that when you start to get a lot of friction on the pivot, it's best to work with the knife half opened. The orientation of the blade when you're riveting determines where the least amount of pressure will be, especially when the blade is triangular in cross-section like this one. After a little working back and forth, the pivot loosens up slightly and it's much easier to open with one hand. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos. I also have a Patreon if you'd like to support this channel too.